So, here we are. I haven't really thought of a name for this stuff yet. With the whole dragon thing, I was thinking like just a dragon vlog or something like that. Something stupid. It's all going to be corny, what can I tell you? Anyway, so the idea here is wanted to try to make some videos. Anything, really, about whatever. I've got quite a bit of ideas. It's just having the time and not being quite as lazy to actually do them. So finally, here's one of them. So, I've got ideas for movies and stuff like that. I've had influences from the Angry Video Game Nerd, the Nostalgia Critic. So I'm not trying to copy anybody, but just trying to find my own thing. And I do want to do video game reviews and movie reviews, but, if I do any of that kind of stuff, I'm not trying to copy anybody, their formats or whatever. It's just, movie review is a movie review. I can't imagine how else you would do it. But this time, I thought maybe start simple. For example, E3 was just last month, and we got to see a bunch of different video game consoles. And then, of course, one came out last year, the Wii U. And, the Wii U makes really good paperweight. I mean, seriously. That gamepad, just, your papers go nowhere. The PlayStation 4. Sorry. And then the Xbox One, which has a major identity crisis. It doesn't know exactly what it is, what it's not going to do, what it is going to do. I don't even know what to say about it anymore. Other than they all look pretty lousy. But one of the biggest things everyone goes into is power. What's under the hood? It makes sense. When you buy a car, you want to know what it can do. But looking back, the question is, are the most powerful video game systems always the most popular ones? Well, that's what we're going to find out. So I'm not going to go through all of them, because I'm just going to go through maybe the more popular ones. So we're not going to go Atari or any of that. I mean, that stuff's just what it was. And I might look into Sega CD and all that just to mention it, but there was the TurboGrafx-16, there was the 3DO. No need to go into any of that stuff. We already know that stuff didn't do anything. It's too bad, too, because some of them were kind of cool. I even think the TurboGrafx-16 might have been the first CD system. I'm not really sure, but I think it was. So, we start off with the NES. Now, everyone knows it. Okay, it's simple, right? The NES. But there was something else. The Sega Master System. Now, everyone just went, what is that? I've never heard of that before. And for like the 1% of us who actually had one, you're like, oh, yeah, I remember that. So you gotta go, oh, well, the NES. That had to have been the most powerful one. It was the most popular. No. The Sega Master System was the most powerful system, even though it wasn't the most popular. It had strange games on it, really strange games. But if you look at a comparison between Ghostbusters that was on the NES and Ghostbusters that was on the Sega Master System, you can see side by side, the one on the Sega Master System looks better. It's also a superior game, even though they were all pretty similar. Even the sound sounded better, but it just couldn't get the Capcoms, the Konamis, your Castlevanias. It just could not get those kind of games, so it fizzled out and failed. So that's a point for our underdog, and the NES is an underdog in this situation because it was less powerful. When you move on, you've got, of course, the Super Nintendo, and we have the Sega Genesis. The Sega Genesis, in my opinion, was probably the best hardware-wise thing that Sega came up with. Which one was more popular? The Super Nintendo. Was it the most powerful? Yes. And just look at it, picture-wise, sound-wise, look into the internals of it. It was really more powerful than the Sega Genesis. So right now we're at a tie. 1-1. One for the underdog, one for our most powerful. Now, of course, Sega eventually goes on to Sega CD and 32X, all this crap that no one really cared about. That, of course, I had it all, and I barely touched it. There were some good games that maybe were on it. If you didn't have a computer, you could play Doom on the 32X, but it's not worth bothering anymore. When you move on, though, Sega will, of course, create the Sega Saturn. Then you have the N64, which I don't know what Nintendo was thinking. Cartridges! Yeah, that's a good idea. Everyone's going to CDs. Let's make cartridges. So I don't know what was going on there. And the PlayStation. What was more powerful? What was more popular? The PlayStation, of course. Sony's going to dominate for a few years. Was it the most powerful? Well, you might go, it had to have been. You had the N64, and then a little Sega Saturn that no one touched. Actually, the Sega Saturn was more powerful. it used a technology that at the time no one who had it any idea what it was. Didn't know how to use it, and that technology was dual core. It had dual core processor in it. They actually looked at the specs of the Sony PlayStation, made it more powerful, and it failed. It absolutely failed. So again, the least powerful, well, not least powerful system, but not the most powerful system has the advantage. The PlayStation, or the PSX, however you want to call it. So we move on. There's GameCube, there's Xbox, and the Dreamcast and the PlayStation 2. Again, obviously, we know what the more popular one was, the PlayStation 2. But what was more powerful? Well, this is where things got a little tricky. I really had to look at research and really kind of look at it because it was all very similar. But from what it looks like, the Xbox was actually the most powerful system, and that thing was a piece of crap, or at least sales-wise here. I mean, the PlayStation 2, just look at the sales, and dominates it. I mean, the Xbox can at least say it did better than the GameCube and the Dreamcast, but it's not really saying much. So once again, the least powerful system has the advantage. Or not the least powerful, but not the most powerful system has the advantage. So right now what we're learning is popularity so far is not being based on solely power, but of course the games. So, we move on. After that, of course, we got to our current generation games. You got your Wii, you've got your Xbox 360, which Microsoft did a much better job with, and your PlayStation 3. What was more popular? Well, as much as you don't want to admit it, it was the Wii. The Wii sold more consecutively. Near the end, 5-6 years in, yeah, it starts to drop off because people are getting ready for the next. They knew that the Wii U was going to come out, and they knew that idea, or they were just kind of sick and tired of the thing. I don't know. But most people had a Wii and another system. I was definitely one of them, but the Wii sold more. And it was a standard definition platform, and the Wii is real proof that you don't really need to worry about power. So, once again, we have to score one for the underdogs. Right now, the least powerful systems are winning. Now, if we want to, just for like a little bonus round, we can throw in handhelds. The Game Boy. And it's pretty much its competition was the Game Gear. Now look at the Game Boy. That thing had terrible graphics. It was green. It was a pea green. It was disgusting. But yet, it was dominating. The Game Gear comes out and it's like, oh look, we've got color. Come on, color. I think you could watch TV on the damn thing too. No one cared. Game Boy. And there's other stupid little things that came out that we don't need to worry about. So you have the Game Boy Color, the Game Boy Advanced. I mean, I don't need to worry about those. It really had no real competition. The DS did, though. So come out with the DS, which I thought was stupid at the time. 2 screens. That's dumb. Now I think it's the best thing in the world. And the PSP. Which one? Well, the PSP pretty much had sort of like a PlayStation 1.5 graphics. It was kind of in the middle between PlayStation and PlayStation 2 graphics. And then you had the DS. And you think the DS maybe, it's got 2 screens and everything. But it's the PSP. It's Sony. They're gonna, they're trying to really jam-pack that thing. If it wasn't for Sega doing their actual homework, and with that Saturn, the PSX could have been the most powerful system. So boom, gone. DS dominates it. So once again, the least powerful system. Look at currently the 3DS and the Vita. The Vita, more powerful. No one's buying it. Everyone's buying the 3DS. So really what it looks like here is that when you're going out for those systems and your basic is, I want to know how powerful it is, what's in it, what's it going to do for me? It doesn't really matter, because history has shown that the least powerful systems, or the most powerful ones, are not popular, and the ones that aren't really powered are doing it. Now nowadays you've got things like the PC to look at, you've got tablets, you've got the phones, there's so many more things to look at now that they're starting to play video games. And the PC, of course, has always been kind of more powerful, but it's not always been the dominant factor, so we don't need to really put PC in there. I think just console kind of stuff is all we really need to look at. But with this new generation coming out, how much more power do we really need? the human eye can only see so much. Eventually, they're going to start throwing stuff in these systems, and the only thing they're going to do, the only difference is okay, this one's called the PlayStation 5. What's the difference? Nothing. Yeah, we threw in a TV tuner. No, I don't care. I mean, am I the only one who remembers when video game systems used to actually play video games, and that's all you cared about? You didn't care if you were going online. It played video games. Shouldn't we go back to that? Well, anyway, the point here was what was more popular, the powerful systems or the least powerful systems? And it looks like the least powerful ones. Something to think about when you're making that decision on the Wii U or the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One. Power really has nothing to do with it. Who has the games? And right now, none of them really look that impressive. I'll buy one when Kingdom Hearts 3 comes out. Final Fantasy 15, really not interested in, but we don't need to talk about Final Fantasy. We can save that for a whole nother time, because those games are just terrible at this point. Okay, 1 through 9, with the exclusion of 8, great. You start hitting 10 and up, they're just terrible. But we don't need to talk about that right now. We'll get into my complete and utter frustration with Square Enix at another time. Yeah, they suck. That's all that matters. They're the new evil empire. But again, we'll worry about that another time. So that is video game systems.